numbered, but I think you can figure this out. Like if we start from here and we number across 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This one would be 11. The next row would go, what, 21 through 30, 31 through 40, 41 through 50, right? We number our rows. So we're going to do the random.org thing, and we're going to say, hey, random.org, pick a number for us between 1 and 50. I blanked for a second. 1 and 50. Now let's stop and think. Do we want to use numbers that are repeated? Because I would be using the same person twice. We don't want to do that, right? So if the generator gives us the same number twice, just skip it, all right? So what you're going to do is do random.org, and we're going to select 10 numbers from 1 to 50. So if we split, I'm going to split my screen and go back to random.org. Isn't that nice? She just opened right up. So 1 to 50. All right. And it's going to generate. I'm going to highlight my seats that I get. So I got 45, 8.
Are we all doing the same numbers that you get? Or
No, you should be doing your own numbers. Everybody do their own numbers. Yeah. Good question. Katie, join us. Are you doing this? Yeah, you're 10. What's wrong? 2 fans from each horizontal row. So in this case, I'm going to tell, so there's 5 rows, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how many seats in each row? 10, right? So I'm going to tell my generator this time to pick a number between 1 and 10. And I'm going to pick 2 seats per row. And we're going to do the same thing we just did. So random.org, but you're choosing 0 to 10 this time. Third method. This time we're going to, instead of use rows, we're going to use columns. 10 columns, right? How many do I need to pick from each column? 1. So let's think about our columns. We're going to number.
Good morning, teachers. We are aware that focus is currently down. We are working on it.
Same thing we've been doing. We're going to say, hey, random.org, pick a number 1 to 5, and I highlight that one for column 1. Then I do the next for the next 10 columns. And then you'll average your scores once you've got them all selected. Now, what we've done is they're all random samples, right? The first one we did was just a simple random sample. There's no strategy to it other than randomization. Method 2, we stratified. Method 3, we stratified, but we stratified differently. Method 2, we stratified by what? Yeah, we stratified by rows.
That was quick. Good morning, Royals.
Okay, the second one we stratified by columns. Both are valid ways to do this. But which do you think, besides method 1, which stratification process here, 2 or 3, which do you think is better to get a concert goer's true rating? 2? Why do you think 2? Higher range to what? I didn't hear that. 5. Okay. So here, what were you gonna say?
Like, I think it has like the chance to like encompass like all the scores more.
Because
like,
why?
Because it goes like sideways, so it's like, I guess it makes sure to get the highest and the lowest like numbers in it.
And why would they be the highest?
Because they're the closest to it.
Yeah. The value of this is like Harry's up here, right? Don't you think if you're on the front row, your experience is going to be different than if you're on the 5th row? This method guarantees that you're going to get responses from every row, every strata away from the stage. This one, you can't guarantee it. Like in mine, I only got one that was on the front row, but I got a bunch that were on the back rows. So yours is different, however. But if I stratify by rows, that is the better choice here because, like you said, I'm getting a good sampling of all the rows' experiences. Make sense? So when you stratify, you want to stratify by whatever characteristic will affect your outcome. In this case, it's the concert experience, right? Which of the 3 methods? So let's summarize that real quick. Stratifying by rows. Because we are guaranteeing, I'm not going to spell that right, we get responses from each, I'm going to say distance from stage, which of course will affect your experience. So there is still randomization involved, so it's a good sampling method, but then it's choosing the right way to stratify. Okay? Stratification means you're going to take some from all. So we took some from each row, or we took some from each column, right? So if we flip the page, we're going to do a 4th method. I know it says method 1, but this was a separate simulation. I just smushed them together. To make it easier to distribute the surveys, the students decide to randomly pick one row and just sample every fan in that row. So instead of actually doing this, let's think about this. Do you think that's a good idea? Why not? It's just the average enjoyment of that one row, right? The results of row 1 are going to be higher or lower than row 5? They're going to be higher. So it's not a good representation of the population. Remember the big cloud picture we talked about Friday? We want information about the big population, but we know we can't get everybody, so we're just going to take a good sample that will reflect the whole. If I only sample the front row, that's not a good reflection of every concert goer's experience, right? Okay, so, but this method right here, if I just select, let's say if I select one row, that is called clustering, when you pick one and you choose all, okay? Or we say all from some. That is a cluster sample. Sometimes it just makes more sense financially. For instance, if I want to know something about middle schoolers, instead of sampling so many from each middle school in the district, I can take one middle school and call it a mini population of the whole district and use that one school. That is a cluster. Clusters are based on location. It's where you pick one and you survey everybody or every individual in that spot you chose, in this case a row, all right? Method 2, students think it's important to sample fans that have different views of the stage, which is what you said. They want to sample every 8th fan. So what we would do if we did this is we would go back to, remember when we numbered from 1 to 50? We would have the generator pick a number from 1 to 50, and we would start at that number. So let's say I got number 3. And then I would count 8 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 8. Until I got 10. So this is called a systematic random sample, where you randomly pick a number, start there, and then you go every 10th or every 8th or whatever value you want to use. Okay, this is called systematic. All right, do you think this is a good method? It's decent, right? It's decent. And a lot of times it's one step better than a convenient sample, right? Convenient sampling is easy, but if I systematically choose, that's a kind of throwing some randomness in that process, right? So that can help make a convenient sample a little more acceptable in any event, all right? Now, I'm not going to average that to save some time. We're not going to do that either, but let's come back here. Last page. All right, what do you have to know? Well, this is some vocabulary, the different sampling methods we did. But remember, when you describe a random sample, you got to list these steps involved, okay? First, you label, including whatever the groups are or the individuals. Then you randomize distinctly. You can use the random number generator like we did. You can put pieces of paper in a hat and shuffle them to choose without replacement. Then you select and then repeat as needed, okay? So you have to list those steps out. I know it's tedious and it's annoying. You have to say things like skip repeats and things like that, and I'll demo that here in a second, all right? But below, what you're going to see are the definitions. Simple random sample, stratified random sample, systematic, and cluster. All the ones we talked about. So let's look at these applications, see how this works out. All right. To score AP Stats exams, ETS hires exam readers, table leaders, and other leadership. Each reading room consists of 16 exam readers, 2 table leaders. There's 100 meeting rooms. The 18 members of the leadership work together in another room. Describe how to select a random sample, stratified random sample of 36 people hired by ETS to score the AP Stats exam, and explain your choice of strata. What do you think? Anybody? What strata are given here? What'd you say? Room? Yeah, which groups? Stratas is another word for groupings.
I mean, like, exam readers versus tables.
Yes. Exam readers, table leaders, and other leadership, right? Yeah. So let's do exam readers, table leaders, and other leadership. What do you think? How many should we choose from each group? Thoughts?
Let's try this one more time. I believe focus is really up this time. Please take your attendance. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. All right. Any thoughts on this? So we would use the employee roles as the strata, label all the exam readers from 1 to N. Okay? So if each room has 16 readers, 2 table leaders, there's 100 rooms. There's a lot to choose from, right? I want 12 from each strata. Does that make sense? To want a total of 36? So I want to choose 12 exam readers, 12 table leaders, 12 other leadership. Does that make sense?
Do we want it to be like fully equal between them, or do we want to account for the difference in them?
I think we want it to be fully equal. I think we do. So what I'm going to do is explain the process for exam readers and just say repeat for table leaders, repeat for other leadership. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because I want a total of 36, and I have 3 different leaders or 3 different levels. Does that make sense? So we don't have to randomize this. So we're going to label the readers from 1 to n. That's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to use, I'm going to say an RNG, a random number generator, to select 12 different numbers from 1 to n being the total number I have of readers or whichever group it is. Notice I said different. If you don't say different, you need to say something like ignore repeats or don't choose someone twice, right? Then we're going to select those individuals. And the 4th step would be, so basically 1 through 3 takes care of the exam readers. Now I just need to repeat the process for table leaders and then other leadership. So I would say repeat process for table leaders and other leadership. Okay. Number 2 says, describe how to select a cluster sample of 36 people hired by ETS to score the AP Stats exam. Explain your choices of clusters. Okay, remember clusters are like groups located near each other that mimic the bigger population. How are these things grouped already?
In rooms.
They're already in rooms, aren't they? And they already have, how many in a room? 18, but I need 36, so what should I do?
Take 2 rooms.
Take 2 rooms? Does that make sense? So then, if I'm selecting by rooms, what is it I need to number?
The number of
The rooms, okay? So I'm going to cluster by rooms. Okay, that's where we're going here. So my first step is to number the rooms. We know there's 100 rooms, right? 1 to 100. How many? So if I'm going to use a random number generator, I'm going to use an RNG to select 2 distinct numbers. You could say 2 numbers and then ignore repeats. That's fine, but you have to mention that. Distinct will accomplish that for you if you want to use distinct or different. Use the random generator to select the 2 distinct numbers. Then you're going to choose those rooms. For the sample. Those 2 rooms. Choose those 2 rooms for the sample. Survey everybody inside them. Now, do I need a 4th step of repeat? No, it's taken care of, right? We got enough. Now, explain a benefit of using a stratified random sample and a benefit of using the cluster. What would be a benefit of stratifying?
all 3 types are represented. There's no variation between the types. So like the exam readers and the table readers and then the other leadership. So there's 12 of each.
There's an even number of each leadership. That's what you're saying? Even number of each level in the sample if you stratify by level, right? if you're a researcher, you want to pick a sampling method that's going to represent the population, capture the information you want, and not spend too much money and time getting it. You know, there's all kinds of factors you have to build into that. But the ultimate goal is to get a good sample that's representative of the population. All right? So what we've looked at, lots of sampling methods today: stratified, systematic, cluster, and then purely random. Now, sometimes some people are extra. I know that's hard to believe. Sometimes researchers will stack methods. Like they'll stratify and then cluster within it. Or stratify and then systematically choose. And that's okay. It's just like extra layers of randomization. If that happens, we call that multi-stage, because there's multiple processes happening, okay? Now, with the stratified, it's already built in that we choose a simple random sample from the strata. So just because it's stratified doesn't mean it's multi-stage, because there's already random sampling in there. Does that make sense to y'all? Because there's random sampling in all of these, because we have to random sample where to start, random sample which group. So just saying random sample isn't a method necessarily, unless it's all it is. So just FYI, that's one of those extra vocab words. Multi-stage sampling is when you see 2 or 3 layers of sampling happening. Okie doke.